everybody, Sticks here with the Token Minorities, bringing you another deck on Pokemon TCGO, and today I am bringing you one of my favorite Legacy decks, and in my opinion, the best Legacy deck to ladder with, and that is one centered around Landorus, Mewtwo, and Garbodor. And before I get into the deck, just a reminder that if you like this video or found it helpful, please leave a like, drop a comment, and maybe subscribe. It helps us out a lot, and lets us do more for you guys. And as for the question of the day, I've been playing Legacy a lot more, well, and expanded to that extent as well, and I've come across a lot of old supporters that I think would be really, really awesome in the current format, in the current standard format, if they were to get reprinted. I mean, I've come across things like Seeker, Sage's Training, Pont, and Pokemon Collector, and my question of the day is, which of these old cards do you guys want to see reprinted? Me, I'm just going to go with a very generic, I want to see Professor Oak's new theory get a reprint in some form, in like some way. Because people were thinking that with Evolution Set, they saw Professor Oak's hint, they thought, oh, this might be a reprint of Pont and might have the same effect. Well, unfortunately no. We got a Tropical Beach that ended up using your supporter for the turn, and then ended your turn immediately after, so normally you play your supporter near the beginning of your turn. Wow, voice crack. You play your supporter near the beginning of your turn, and then from there, you're able to make a lot of plays off of that. Nope, not with Professor Oak's hint. I think that's what it's called anyway. If it's like Professor Oak's new hint, Professor Oak's hint, I don't know. But with Professor Oak's hint, it just ends your turn. You don't get to do anything after that, so people were very disappointed. I want to see this card get a reprint because it's shuffle your hand into your deck, then draw 6 cards. That is great. It doesn't have quite the draw power of Juniper or Sycamore, but then again, those things have the nasty drawback of having to discard a bunch of cards. So with Professor Sycamore and Juniper, you get an additional card, but you also have to discard your hand, and also Professor Oak's new theory does not have the effect of N. Well, it has the shuffling effect of N, but it does not give your opponent a new hand as well. So I really want to see this guy get a reprint in the current standard format. I think that would be so powerful. But then again, I'd also like to see something like Collector or Sage's Training, just something, throw it in there, shake up the metagame a little bit, see if these guys can get something going. I mean, I know that Pokemon Collector is kind of like Pokemon Fan Club and Bridget, except Pokemon Collector can get a bunch of EXs, whereas Bridget can be like, oh yeah, you can get 1 EX, that's it. So, I don't know, I kind of want to see Pokemon Collector and or Sage's Training where you look at the top 2 cards, and then, well, you look at the top 5 cards, pick 2, and discard the other 3. I think that could really help a lot of decks. However, I still think that Pont is the best card to reprint and would have the best effect on the metagame. But again, that's my opinion. Let me know what you guys think in the description and why. But anyway, like I said, this deck is centered around Landorus, Garbodor, Mewtwo. There's really no single Pokemon that this deck is centered around. I mean, it really is centered around all 3 of these guys, and basically the design is to just counter the metagame. Wow, my voice is cracking left and right. I'm sorry, guys. I'm dealing with some major sinuses right now. I hate the winter. I hate how much it just clogs up everything. So my voice is going to crack at least 5 different times. We've already knocked out 2, so expect 3 more throughout the duration of this live. But anyway, this deck is really just designed to counter a lot of the meta strategies. I mean, if you think about things like well, budget decks like Weavile Eggs, Trubbish, or I guess Tool Drop Trubbish, those type of decks. Those are the budget decks that a lot of people have access to. Well, Garbodor shuts those down completely. I mean, not Tool Drop, but I mean, it really does shut down Tool Drop a lot because it keeps the Sigilif from being able to have multiple tools on it, which powers up that Trubbish even more. So in a way, it does shut it down pretty well. And then Landorus is just a very cheap attacker, hits 30 to the active, 30 to the bench, and then when you combine that with things like Hypnotoxic Laser, being able to snipe things early on, really, Landorus is just a very, very powerful card. And then you cannot overlook Land's Judgment. For 3 energy, does 80, and then if you want to discard all the fighting energy attached to Landorus, you can do 70 more damage. So you can potentially hit for 150, which is an attack you definitely do not want to overlook. And finally, the third part of our Triforce is Mewtwo-EX with the X-Ball attack. Does 20 damage times the number of energy attached to the defending this Pokemon and the defending Pokemon. So, one weakness that Garbodor and Landorus have is if your opponent, well, if they get a Keldeo up. If they manage to get a Keldeo with a bunch of energy up before you're able to get your Garbodor up, they'll be able to just start one-shotting Landorus left and right. Well, Mewtwo can come in, slap a DC on it, and be like, oh, I see you have a Keldeo with a ton of energy. That thing is now gone. So Mewtwo just kind of covers the weaknesses of Garbodor and Landorus, and these guys really have great synergy, and I think that this is honestly the, I wouldn't say the best deck in Legacy, because, I mean, that's kind of a coin flip. I think this is the best deck to ladder with, because it covers a lot of different matchups. It has good matchups against a lot of different things, like, oh, like I said, Weavile Eggs, Tool Drop, even Reshflosion to an extent, because Landorus can spread damage early, take out Cyndaquils, and while Garbodor can't shut down Typhlosion's Pokepower, I think is what it is. It might be a Pokebody. I don't remember. I think it's a Pokepower, but again, might be a Pokebody. The fact that Landorus can spread damage out so early, and then you can get KOs with Hypnotoxic Laser and also Mewtwo coming in with X-Ball. Really, this just kind of has a good matchup against a lot of things. Heck, even Virizion Genesect. It'll shut down Virizian's Verdant Wind and Genesect's, Red Signal, to where you are able to not only have your Pokemon not be catchered up, but you can Hypnotoxic Laser them and build up the damage even quicker. So I think this deck just has everything it needs to deal with a lot of the decks that you're going to encounter in the Legacy metagame. And even like Blastoise Keldeo, you have Garbodor to shut that down. And if you can take out the first Keldeo, you're good to go. But as for the rest of the Pokemon, running one Stunfisk as kind of a non-Landorus bench sniper. For 1 energy, it does 20 damage and 20 to an opponent's bench Pokemon. So basically just a slightly inferior Hammerhead. Actually, it's quite inferior. That 10 damage is a lot bigger than you might think. However, it's a great non-EX attacker if you're down to like, if your opponent's down to 2 prizes and you want to start sniping some stuff, or even early game if you don't have a Landorus yet. Stunfisk is just great for that. 1 Terrakion for its Retaliate attack. I'll be honest, you can actually get rid of Terrakion completely. I don't use it that much. However, the Retaliate attack is just too good to pass up completely. And the fact that it's a non-EX attacker is even better for those pesky Safeguard Pokemon. Oh, that's another thing that Garbodor shuts down. Safeguard Pokemon like Suicune and Sigilyph. Boom. Garbotoxin. Shut down completely. Don't have to worry about them. Terrakion is just a nice thing to be able to hit back if your opponent has something that's powered up and able to one-shot your Landorus or Mewtwo. You can have a non-EX attacker hit for 90 for 2 energy, which isn't great, but it's still, when you combine it with like previous damage from Hammerhead, Hypnotoxic Laser, all of that, that 90 damage can actually come in pretty clutch. And then running 2 Jirachi, 4 Stellar Guidance in order to be able to get a supporter. You don't want this deck to be clunky, and you want to have things consistently streaming, so that's why we're running 2 Jirachi instead of 1, and also we're running a thinner line of Pokemon anyway, so Jirachi isn't the worst thing in the world to have a couple of just in case. As for the items, we are running 1 Computer Search. Definitely run Computer Search over anything else. Don't run Dowsing Machine. You know why? Because we have Junk Arm, which is Dowsing Machine. It really is Dowsing Machine, except that you don't have to use your A-Spec on it. 2 Dual Ball. I mean, this is kind of a toss-up as to what type of Pokemon retrieval line you want to run. I run 2 Dual Ball just because 90% of our deck, well actually, not 90%, it's more like 80-something. But 80-something% of our deck is all basic Pokemon, so that way Dual Ball, just flip 1 heads. I mean, 50% of the time, well actually, well, according to statistics, you should get 1 heads every single time, but that doesn't always happen. Well, never mind. Forget what I said completely. Dual Ball, flip 2 coins. For each heads, you get a basic Pokemon. More often than not, you're going to get 1 heads, 1 tails, so for just playing this 1 card, you get a basic Pokemon. Sometimes you'll get 2 heads, which is great because you get 2 of them, and sometimes you get 2 tails where you're just like, well, crap, what do I do now? So Dual Ball, kind of a double-edged sword. I think that it is definitely worth using. 2 Ultra Ball just to guarantee get something that you want and also to search out a Garbodor if you need it. Running 1 Pokemon Communication as well, because sometimes you'll have like a Terrakion or a Stunfisk in your hand or a Garbodor when you really want like a Landorus or a Mewtwo or a Trubbish. So Pokemon Communicator, you can just throw that Pokemon back into your deck and get the Pokemon that you really want without having to discard. We're also running 2-3 of Hypnotoxic Laser and Virbank City Gym. I know that I usually run 3-2, but I decided on 2-3 just because of Junk Arm, and that's, through much testing, that's what I decided. This helps out with the math a lot with Hammerhead and X-Ball, and is an excellent, excellent card in any Legacy deck. 4 Junk Arm to reuse any of our tools that we want. 2 Reversal just so our opponent's Pokemon on the bench aren't safe at all. That's kind of a personal touch. I know it's a coin flip, but if you don't want to use that, you can definitely get rid of it for more like P-Coms or Dual Balls or Hypnotoxic Lasers. That's just something that I like to have just to be like, hey, your Pokemon is not safe on your bench, you better think twice about it. Running 2 Random Receivers for a similar effect to Jirachi, except with Random Receiver, it's random what supporter you get, but again, can help with consistency in getting a supporter. 1 Super Rod to put some stuff back in our deck. 1 Switch, just because, I mean, gets your active Pokemon out of the active spot. We have Pokemon with really high retreat cost. I mean, 3, 2, I mean, Jirachi only has 1, but then you have 3, 3, 3, actually 4 with Terrakion, so very, very high retreat cost. You don't always want to waste a Float Stone on a Landorus or a Terrakion or something like that, so having a Switch there is great for just being like, hey, yeah, I don't want you in the active spot, and also gets them out of sleep, paralysis, whatever is keeping your Pokemon there. As for the supporters, 4-4 of Juniper and Professor Oak's New Theory, 4 consistent draw support, 2 N for disruption and shuffling back into our deck if we don't have a Professor Oak's New Theory, 1 Pokemon Collector to get a bunch of basic Pokemon early on. You really only want to use this card first turn, otherwise it's just discard fodder, and then 1 Skyla just in case you really need that Hypnotoxic Laser or the Computer Search or something like that. Running absolute max number of Float Stones because, like I said, very heavy Pokemon and with a very high retreat cost, and also Garbodor relies on having a tool attached to it, so what better card than Float Stone, so might as well run the max number for not only Garbodor but our heavy Pokemon as well. 3 DCEs, only 3 because we're normally going to be attacking with Landorus, however Mewtwo is a huge backup attacker, so we're running 3 of these just because, I mean, they only power up Mewtwo really, and the rest of our Pokemon don't rely on it, and then 7 Fighting Energy for, I mean, just literally everything. Everything can use Fighting Energy. I mean, heck, even Trubbish can pound for 20. But anyway, I've rambled for way too long. That is the deck, and now let's go ahead and see this deck in action. Alrighty, we have found one against Dresdan with a Dark, Psychic, and Metal deck, so, you know, ooh, this might be a... I actually don't know what my opponent is running. If it's Dark, then I'm hoping that Darkrai is somehow involved because that is a great matchup for us. We do win the coin flip. We will want to go first. I mean, it's not the end of the world if you go second because you're still able to attack. And we actually draw into a phenomenal hand. We have a couple Float Stones. We have an Energy. We have a Trubbish. We have some... we have the Pokemon Collector. And, I mean, yeah, I know I did some tinkering with this deck, and I have been trying in and out with Chorus, so, I mean, for the sake of this match, and I think, you know what, I think I'm going to do Chorus in this match, and then Chorus in the last match. So, I mean, honestly, I've kind of grown to not like Chorus as much, I'll be honest, because I always draw it on first turn, as you can see here. But that is definitely something that you guys can put in as well. I mean, I was staring at the deck list right before I was doing this, and wow, we get another Float Stone. That's great. So I was staring at the deck list right before I was about to do this and realized that, do I want a Chorus? You know what? Screw it. I'll do it for one match. I won't do it for another match, and I'll just kind of alternate. So, you know what? This was a Chorus match, and my opponent just forfeits immediately. And welcome to the Legacy format, where your opponents forfeit immediately 90% of the time when they see what type of deck you're running. So that's an unfortunate first match, but let's just go ahead and try to find another one. Okay, alright, found another one. Let's see if we can actually get a decent match this time and not just have my opponent forfeit immediately. You know, usually I edit these type of matches out. However, this time, I mean, I know I always say, like, look, I've spent a while. I decided that this time I'm actually going to show you each match that I get, as opposed to just being like, hey, you know what, just kind of trust me on this one. So no matter how many matches it takes to get a good match, I'm just going to show you guys each one so you can see what it's like in the Legacy format, and so I'm not just disillusioning you guys into thinking, oh, you get a good match every single time. No, a lot of times it's like, alright, go for the coin flip and my opponent forfeited. Okay, I guess that's how that goes. But anyway, we do start with the Terrakion. That's kind of a bad... That's actually the last Pokemon we want to start with. Well, second to last. The worst is starting with the Jirachi. But I'd even rather start with a Stunfisk. But either way, we run 4 Float Stones. Wow. We run 4 Float Stones. We run a Switch. And my opponent is taking their sweet time on picking out a Pokemon. And I'm not sure how much this will matter or even if it'll make a difference. Hey, my opponent played something. So, yeah, we will go ahead and... I'm actually curious to see what my opponent is running. So they start with a decent... They get a decent start, it looks like. Okay, Keldeo Darkrai. All right. And we even draw an Ultra Ball. So let's go ahead and Dual Ball. Go ahead and get 2 heads. That's beautiful. So let's go ahead and grab a Landorus and a Trubbish, I think. I mean, you see 2 abilities out there. Might as well just shut those suckers down immediately. Do that. And, okay, my opponent forfeits. I mean, I wasn't running Colress that match, but I guess... You guys don't get to see it because my opponent forfeits again. So, again, wow, how many times am I going to say again? But, yeah, that's a legacy format for you. Going to try to find another one. Not going to hold my breath because odds are that my opponent will just forfeit again. But you know what? We can always just pray, right? All right, 0 for 2. Let's see if we can go at least 1 for 3. I mean, it looks promising based on my opponent's deck, but I'm hoping we can at least get 1 turn done in this match. I mean, have a complete turn. So we will see what is going to happen. I mean, my opponent's deck looks promising based on the types. I mean, it might be like Execute, Jirachi, and then like Blastoise, Keldeo, which would be... Actually, it would depend on who was able to get set up first. My opponent seems to be thinking about this coin flip for a while, so that I'm... I mean, the coin flip is very hard. Do you pick heads or tails? And, oh my gosh, didn't even get to draw cards that time. Well... Oh boy. So, yeah, I mean, I'm sorry that I'm showing you guys all this, but I just want to give you a real life, like, look into the Legacy format and what types of matches you'll get. This is actually how it is. 3 matches, you're not going to get a good one, but let's see if we can get one. I'm crossing my fingers. I think the next one's going to be a good one. Alright guys, do you have your fingers crossed? Because I know I have my fingers crossed. Okay, we're up against a Psychic and Steel deck, so... You know what? That looks promising. It might be like a Mewtwo, Garbodor, Jirachi deck or something like that. So, you know what? This looks promising. I mean, we made it even to the coin flip, and my opponent hasn't forfeited yet. We do lose the coin flip. Wow. Okay, so there's voice crack number 3. For those of you keeping track, we are only 2 away from our goal, which is 5. But either way, we start with a Terrakion again. Oh boy, this is not the matchup that you want to start Terrakion with. I would rather... Well, I mean, at least I have a Float Stone, I have an Ultra Ball. I'm kind of hoping that I can get like a Dual Ball or something. That way my Junk Arms and Ultra Balls don't have to discard like an absolute crap load of stuff. But okay, it's a Mewtwo. Okay, so we see a Mewtwo, which means that this matchup, wow. I can't talk, and I am having my voice crack left and right, so this is such a great live, guys. But either way, we do see the Life Dew go down onto Mewtwo and the DCE, so this looks like a Mewtwo-EX Gardevoir, maybe? I'm not sure exactly what my opponent is running. I mean, the fact that he's able to get 2 Ralts down, I mean, I'm not going to knock it at all, because I have no idea. I mean, it could be that Gardevoir that runs the, what is it? It could be the Gardevoir that runs the the ability where each Psychic Energy counts as 2, which could be really, really powerful in this matchup, because then you can just attach a regular Psychic Energy, and that would basically count as a DCE. And, okay, I get... You know what? This isn't the end of the world. Because, I mean, I do get a Pokemon Collector off the Random Receiver, which isn't necessarily something I want. But let's go ahead and play that sucker down. Grab a Jirachi for sure, a Mewtwo, and... Do I want to grab another Mewtwo or a Trubbish? I think a Or do I want to grab another Landorus? Decisions. What do I want to do? Yeah, let's just go ahead and grab another Landorus, just in case, just cuz. So play that down, play the Float Stone onto the Terrakion, play another Landorus down, go ahead and get rid of the Virbank, and then go ahead and Hammerhead onto the Mewtwo, and then it really doesn't matter which Ralts I hit, because I will be two-shotting both of them anyway, and I have a Jirachi for next turn that I can play down to grab a Juniper or something like that. So I didn't play the Jirachi down just in case my opponent wants to end me and give me a new hand. I'd rather not have a Jirachi wasting a bench spot. So we do see a rare candy. Okay, is this going to be the Gardevoir or it's actually Gallade? What Gallade is this? Is this the... Oh, that looks like the Powerful Storm Gallade. That's kind of cool. And yep, this is exactly why I did not want to play down my Jirachi. It was just in case my opponent decided to end me. I would rather have that bench spot available for a Garbodor or a Mewtwo or something like that. And I get end into a beautiful hand. That is absolutely gorgeous. And okay, my opponent plays a Trubbish as well. So I don't even have to worry about Gardevoir this game. Or Garbodor. Wow, that's gonna mess with me. If my opponent's running Gardevoir, I am going to mix those two up all game. I'm just warning you guys ahead of time. So, looks like my opponent will be able to X-Ball me for 60. That Life Dew is actually kind of annoying right now. But, I mean, at least that's his A-Spec, or their A-Spec. I apologize if it's a she. It looks like a female avatar, so my opponent's going to be able to hit me for 80. That's a little bit scary, actually. So Powerful Storm, okay. Energy attached to your Pokemon, not energy in play, so I don't have to worry about that too much. What I am going to go ahead and do is Dual Ball, get absolutely nothing. I think PCOM. No, first I want to Computer Search. Get rid of my PCOM and my Trubbish to grab probably Hypnotoxic Laser just to get damage racking up. I mean, if I had a DCE and a Float Stone or a DCE and a Switch in my hand, then I would immediately just go ahead and slap the DCE onto Mewtwo, switch into it, and then knock out my opponent's Mewtwo. But at this point, I think I'm just going to go ahead and, yep, Juniper, hope for... Well, there's a switch, and I didn't draw into the DCE. So that was still... I stand by my play. I think that was the smarter play overall. Let's just go ahead and Hammerhead, and... So it's not really going to set up any particularly good math, so I think, yeah, whatever. I'm just going to damage the Kirlia, put it in range of something. I don't know. But Mewtwo has damage racking up on it thanks to Laser Bank and then Hammerhead. We do see the Jirachi go down, so that is going to be a definite Hammerhead target for me in the coming turns. I'm probably... I mean, Mewtwo's going to get knocked out, I think, going back into my opponent's turn. So my opponent has to get something else. Well, okay, he's starting to get the Gallade powered up onto the bench. He's going to Juniper away his hand, or her hand. I apologize. I'm just going off of the general demographic of Pokemon TCG players. I encourage all females that are watching this to get involved with the TCG because the more the merrier. And, I mean, I have nothing against you guys. I'm just programmed to think of that based on how based on the general demographic of the Pokemon TCG that I have seen and encountered. So I apologize in advance for any girls watching this. But either way, okay, gonna go for a Gallade. Yeah, just evolve the Kirlia, so that's not gonna be in range of Hammerheads. So, I mean, that's a little bit unfortunate. However, there is a Jirachi, a delicious Jirachi just sitting on my opponent's bench, ready to have 3 Hammerheads pick it off. And what I think... So, what do I want to attach the energy to? So, first off, I'm going to see if I can get a Professor X's New Theory. No, I get a Skyla. That's fine. Let's see. What do I want to grab? I could, like, Skyla... Yeah, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to Sycamore. I'm going to Juniper away everything, and I draw into more Ponce than I could ever want in my life. I think at this point, yeah, let's just go ahead and Hammerhead. Start damaging the Jirachi as well. The Mewtwo will get knocked out coming into my turn. Oh, well, obviously, the Mewtwo gets knocked out going into my opponent's turn. Only take 1 prize thanks to Life Dew. I mean, that actually came through for my opponent in what I think I'm going to do next turn. Junk Arm for a... Yeah, I'm going to Junk Arm for a Hypnotoxic Laser to start racking up damage on this Gallade while also targeting down that Jirachi. Just get that thing out of the way as quickly as possible. I don't think there's a way my opponent can knock me out this turn because Powerful Storm will be doing 80 at the most. And I think my Landorus is safe. Yeah, so, okay, Landorus gets damage on it. That is fine. What I am going to do... Wow, I draw into another Jirachi. What could I grab with the Hypnotoxic Laser? With the Junk Arm. I think... do I want to just... Yeah, you know what? Let's go ahead and Junk Arm get rid of both Jirachis because I really don't need them anymore at this point. Jirachi is mostly just good for early game, and I've hopefully thinned my deck out enough to where it doesn't matter anymore. And then I'm just going to power up the... Do I want to power up... Yeah, you know what? Let's just go ahead and power up the Terrakion. Hammerhead is going to be my main attack anyway, and then I am just going to punt away my hand and get 6 more cards. Ooh. I could try to reversal in the Jirachi, but let's just actually go ahead and put the Float Stone onto the Landorus. If my opponent has to attach an energy this turn in order to take a knockout, and that's kind of what I'm making them do. They have to attach an energy to take a knockout on a Landorus, otherwise, if they woke up, Powerful Storm was just a free KO onto my Landorus, and they do stay asleep, so that is great. I will be able to snipe down that Jirachi next turn, as well as take the knockout on the Gallade, and then just take 3 prizes in 1 turn, which is usually reserved for Plasmagale Lugia. But hey, we're doing it with Landorus-EX at this point. I mean, unless my opponent has a Switch. I'm going completely assuming that my opponent does not have a Switch. But they do just attach the energy to the Gallade on the bench. That is completely fine. They do wake up. Not a big deal. What I might actually do is reversal up my opponent's other Gallade. Never mind. Let's just go ahead and attach another DCE to Mewtwo, because why the heck not? And then take our 3 prizes on Gallade and Jirachi. My opponent will have to attach a DCE in order to be able to knock out my Landorus this coming turn. What do we get? We get an Ultra Ball. And let's see what we will get off of the Jirachi. 2 more. Thank you very much. Another DCE and a Float Stone. So we have plenty of resources for next turn. I mean, I can just Junk Arm for something if I need it. And then I can play the Hypnotoxic Laser. I could play the Float Stone onto the Landorus, switch into my Mewtwo, and then just DCE destroy the Gallade because it has a DCE on it. Ooh, I can... There's a target. That's a beautiful target. I can just... what can I do? I can reversal in the Jirachi, play the last DCE onto my Mewtwo, and never mind because my opponent has an N, and they're going to be able to end me down to 2 cards, while my opponent will get a fresh hand of 6. And even though N is known as the comeback card, I don't think there's much my opponent can do at this point to be able to take his remaining prizes before I take my last 2, especially because I draw into a Float Stone, which I can use to just retreat into my Mewtwo. So he plays a Rainbow Energy onto the Jirachi. What the heck? I don't know. Maybe they are going to go for the Hypno Strike to try to put me asleep, and Powerful Storm does not knock me out. That is fine. And yeah, I mean, I decided to play Chorus. In the middle 2 matches, I wasn't playing Chorus, and I wasn't getting any games at all. So I was like, you know what? Maybe Chorus just wants to be in this live completely. So I decided to put Chorus in the first and last match, and obviously those are the ones that are going to matter the most. Let's go ahead and X-Ball the Gallade, get huge overkill, hit for 280 damage. That is way more damage than we would have ever needed. And my opponent does get an energy onto the Jirachi, so that is a... So the Hypno Strike route is a real possibility at this point. I mean, if my opponent can end me down to 1, and I just draw into a bunch of cards that I can't work with, then that's something. My opponent's stall strategy will have been completed. However, if I can somehow wake up this next turn or do something, then I will win, because I have a Juniper in my hand. I have a Hypnotoxic Laser to start getting passive damage on the Jirachi. That way, even if I don't wake up, I can still take my last prize in order to win. So I think, I mean, oh, my opponent just... Okay, so retreat. We're able to retreat into... What is my opponent going into? The Garbodor? Okay. I mean, I still win. Oh, plays the Float Stone onto the... Okay. So I guess... I mean, I still don't know what that accomplishes. I guess he could have potentially hoped, or they could have potentially hoped that I would choke, go into Landorus, get 2 prizes. And actually, you know what? That should have been my play. I really should have gone into a Landorus, let my opponent take 2 prizes, and then just knock out the Jirachi with my Mewtwo. So, I don't know. I was playing a little too conservatively at that point. What I am going to go ahead and do is just Juniper away the rest of my hand, hopefully draw into... Well, there's a Junk Arm. That is exactly what I needed. Let's go ahead and get rid of the Ultra Ball and the Energy to grab our Switch to go ahead and just switch back into the Mewtwo and then knock out the Jirachi with X-Ball and take the victory from my opponent. I mean, again, should have just gone into the Landorus, let my opponent knock it out, because then I could go into Mewtwo and win the game, as opposed to potentially, I don't know, potentially giving my opponent a free turn in which they could have gotten something going. So, okay, that was the live. Look at that. We get a solid 2 heads and 5 tails. That is typical TTM luck right there. But either way, we were able to finally get a good match in the Legacy format. I apologize for all the cruddy matches before that, but that is the reality of the Legacy format if you're running a real deck. So I apologize for that, and my voice only cracked 4 times, so we fell 1 short. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff, and this is Styx signing out. Why not? See you guys.